Hey guys, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. This week, as ever, I wanted to try and pick up on something and answer some questions about a pedal that every time it appears on my YouTube channel generally sparks a little bit of interest, and that is the Klon KTR. If I can pick it up. Kindly remember, the ridiculous hype that offends so many is not of my making. Now, if you're familiar with this, and the kind of legend, myth, ridiculousness that is the Klon Centaur, you may understand what that is in relation to. If you're not, just to give you a little bit of background on the history of the Klon. Klon Centaur is, or was I guess, an overdrive pedal that was produced between 1994 and 2009 by a guy in the US called Bill Finnegan, who by his own estimation built around 8,000 units. Or 8,000 pedals, all on his kitchen worktop, so it was a very much homespun operation. 15 years of production, and they actually initially retailed at $235. It was marketed as a transparent overdrive pedal, which again, if you're familiar with the concept of the Klon or the sound of one, you'll know that they don't really offer that much gain. It's not a high gain pedal by any stretch, the whole point of which being that when you turn the pedal on, there isn't its own inherent EQ curve. Take, for example, a tube screamer. When you turn a tube screamer on, you get that bass cut and you get a very kind of prominent mid-hump. Much the same with maybe an SD1 or something similarly voiced. With the Klon, the whole idea being you turned it on and you didn't really notice that you turned it on, which $235 for a pedal does that. Sounds a bit steep. But when you start either cranking the level, you get a very nice clean boost effect, which is predominantly what people use the Klon for, to be honest. If anyone has them or has a clone, in my experience at least, from what I've read, they tend to get more use as a clean boost as they do an overdrive. Obviously, the more then you turn the gain control up, you get overdrive. But again, it's a very transparent overdrive pedal, and it doesn't really affect the EQ of your guitar signal so much as it does just the level of gain at it. As I said, produced between 1994 and 2009. Bill ceased production in 2009. I think reason being the wait list had just got a little bit long, and he was getting snowed under and decided to call it a day. By which point the second-hand value of the Klon has started to climb, primarily because the weight. It's a little bit like the King of Tone video I did a fortnight ago. When there's a wait list implemented, obviously the second-hand value goes straight through the roof, trying to capitalise on the people who are not maybe willing to wait. However, much like the King of Tone, I guess, but to a maybe slightly bigger extent, is the people using the Klon Centaur, all of which I guess could be argued to have desirable tone, whether that's Jeff Beck, whether that's Keith Urban, whether it's Bonamassa, whether it's John Mayer, whether it's Andy Summers, whether it's Peter Frampton, whether it's apparently James Hetfield as well, according to Wikipedia. I don't know how true that is. All these massive players, all of which, as I said, in one way or another, could be considered to have desirable tone. If you Google their name, followed by Klon Centaur, you will find a picture of them using it at some point. Now, obviously, this does no harm for a pedal or an amp or a guitar company's reputation to have pro players and ones people tend to idolise endorsing something. So, as you can imagine, that tended to send their second-hand value through the roof. And now, especially since they've ceased production, you can spend upwards of about kind of $3,000, I guess, on original Centaur. Now, just to preface, the whole point of this video is whether the KTR is worth the hype. Just to point out that I would never, in any circumstances, I think, even if I was a multi-millionaire, spend as much as my car is currently worth on a second-hand pedal. But the whole kind of point of this video is to try and get to the bottom, and I guess try and disseminate the difference between worth to you and financial worth, I guess. Just to give you a little bit of background on this pedal. Bill Finnegan started producing these in 2012, basically to try and kind of capitalise, I guess, on the fact that the Klon interest was bigger than ever, even more so since the original ceased production in 2009. He brought these out in 2012, and I think the original plan was just to do an unlimited run and make them a production model. However, as things with Bill Finnegan generally seem to go, that didn't seem to go to plan, and they're no longer made. And now one of these, one of the replacements, will set you back at present around about the kind of £350 mark on eBay. So again, for a pedal that wouldn't have cost anywhere near that initially, they've now taken on a bit of life of their own, and the second-hand value has gone through the roof. Again, just adding to the whole kind of myth and just weirdness surrounding the Klon Centaur. I didn't actually buy this pedal. Also, just to point out the text on the front, I think that's Bill's little attempt at a joke, just to try and poke fun, I guess, at the ridiculousness of the hype, which is a word that in this case I don't feel too bad for using. A couple of people picked me up on the use of the word hype in the King of Tone video, but when it actually says it on the front of the pedal itself, I don't feel too bad. So, as I said, these are no longer in production, and just to give you, that's where I was going. My train of thought goes off wandering. How I got this pedal. I didn't buy it, but I didn't steal it either. It's actually on an extended swap, I guess, with a mate of mine who currently has my JHS Klon, which interestingly enough is something worth mentioning, because apparently, depending on where you read, the JHS Klon, Klon here being spelled Klone, little spin off the word Klon, was the only clone actually made at the say-so, or the kind of go-ahead, I guess, of Bill Finnegan, the Klon's original designer. I don't know whether he profited from that, or it was just a case of wanting to make sure that there was an accurate representation of the original Klon out there. JHS stopped production then, I would imagine, around about 2012, when the KTR was brought into existence. But you can pick JHS clones up on eBay. Again, given the whole kind of Klon name attached to it, the prices tend to climb fairly high. I bought mine a couple of years ago now. I was lucky enough to get it for, I think, £140 maybe, second hand. But as I said, I've swapped it with a mate of mine, just on a bit of an extended loan, just to try and let him get a flavour of the JHS and myself get a flavour of the KTR. So I didn't buy this, but I stuck it on my pedalboard just to start using it and see what it sounded like. And because I'm actually using the Seriatone or Chiriatone, I've been reading on how to say this recently. Seriatone, let's say for the time being, the Centaur, using that as a clean boost. I'm actually been using this as an overdrive pedal. The way people tend to use the Klons and KTRs is actually as a clean boost, which is a kind of bit of a buzz phrase, I guess, that you tend to see popping up pretty frequently. But it's something that the Klon is fairly renowned for, in that if you keep the gain pretty low and not dime, but kind of give the volume a little bit of a above unity kick, it tends to act as a really nice kind of fattener, especially for strats, not so much kind of humbuckers, I guess, but generally just kind of fattens up your tone very slightly. So that is the kind of realm where most people tend to use their Klon Centaurs. And I guess it's kind of part of the reason they're ridiculous, the price has gone through the roof, is people are always looking for ways to fatten up their tone very slightly. So, as I said, I've been using this KTR as an overdrive pedal for around about a year now, I guess. It tends to sound particularly nice with P90s or single coils. I've never been a massive fan of Klon style overdrive with humbuckers, but just to try and get to the bottom of how it sounds like, and try and dispel some of the myth and rumour and nonsense that surrounds these pedals, I thought I would plug it in and take you through how it sounded, kind of full range of gain, I guess, available, and try and show you some of its use as a clean boost. As for worth, as I highlighted in the King of Tone video, for me personally, that's a very subjective thing in trying to disseminate between financial worth and not sentimental worth, but kind of personal worth to you in terms of how much you use it. If, for example, it's not the case, but if, for example, the KTR was my main overdrive and I found that I struggled to sound like myself, or struggled to get the sound that was in my head without the KTR, it's worth $1 million. It's worth however much you would pay to get another one. But in terms of how much I do actually use it, would I pay £300 on one? I wouldn't. But as ever, to stop waffling on, I guess the best way to try and discern whether these pedals are worth the money, worth the hype, worth the expectation and weight that comes with the name Klon Centaur, the best way to do it is just plug in and play. For this week's episode, I'm going to be using this pedal. This is also known as a guitar even, which is my new Yamaha 502 Revstar in shot black. A very cool looking guitar, and it sounds absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to plug it in, going into guitar rig as ever for home recording. Don't worry, people asking me about guitar rig videos, there is a video coming up very soon. But plug it in and see how it sounds. So as ever, thank you very much for watching. Stick around next week for another episode of Friday Fretworks. And if you haven't already, do subscribe. Check me out on Facebook. Check Buck and Evans out on Facebook. All of the links of which are in the comment box below, or the description box even. And I shall see you next week for another episode of Friday Fretworks. Cheers, guys. Take care.